It is Friday, April the 9th, and it's great to have you here with us this morning. My name is Rob Borden, and I am on the staff here at the church. If you are joining us for the first time and we haven't had a chance to connect or see each other, at least on the computer or on our phone or whatever, I rotate every other Fridays with Jake Forsyth, and this week is my turn. For those of you who have been part of this for a while, you know that the way I usually do it is I do not follow along on Facebook, so I don't see comments or can't respond to things or whatever as I'm doing the devotion, but I will go in afterwards and respond or whatever needs to be done or acknowledge that you've joined us. If you've joined us live, thank you for getting up and signing on. If you are jumping in later, I hope that you enjoy this and the timing works out for you. These usually stay up for a month or more, but I would expect if you were going to watch this, it'd be in the next couple of days. But anyhow, I hope you are having a great day and that the post-Easter lull, if you will, is not too bad for you. We had a great weekend of Easter worship services last weekend with almost 500 people in person, spread out amongst 7 services. So, but yeah, I mean, so we're slowly getting back to sort of like that normal pre-COVID in-person type thing. So if you haven't felt comfortable joining us, I think if you check it out, you might feel like we've got a pretty good setup with that. People are still wearing face coverings in church, and we are distancing people in the sanctuary, and we are limiting the number of people as well, although we're expanding that limit this week, as a matter of fact, to 90 people from 75. So we're slowly kind of getting there. So this week, I am going to be reading from Luke, and this story is so Jesus has risen, and what's interesting about it is that whole thing as far as the resurrection and the post part of it is he was appearing to people, as you probably know, the disciples and others, and that people either just didn't recognize him or they couldn't believe it was him. So he had to show proof, like I think the disciples, he had to show that he had where the nails were driven into his palms and things like that. But what I always thought was interesting about that whole resurrection story is that he showed himself to the women in his life, the important women, because those were the ones that maybe were really the most heartfelt pain from losing this amazing friend, this Messiah, and even when as they go to the tomb, he's not there. So it's just that he picked those women to be the ones that realized that he had risen. So this particular story I'm going to read you out of the scriptures has to do with him coming to people that just didn't recognize him, and it's quite an interesting story, I think. And if we can, as best we can, just put ourselves in these people's places. Back then, 2,000 years ago, obviously the big news, the Messiah has been crucified, and then his body is gone, and of course they didn't know his body stolen. I mean, there's just so many questions that needed to be answered and wanted to be answered, and people, of course, were genuinely sad, and because Jesus was bringing hope to the world. And so for those of you who are just joining us, is what I like to do when I do on every other Friday is read the scripture. And then I'll stop at a couple of various points throughout and then just maybe highlight a couple of things. And you may have some thoughts on this. So please, if you do, type them in the Facebook comments, and I will go in later, like I said, and read those and then respond. And so, yeah, this is from Luke 24:13 through 35. So it starts this way. That same day, 2 of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things, Jesus himself suddenly came and began walking with them. But God kept them from recognizing him. Okay, so here's this guy. He kind of just shows up. He's walking along with them, and they have no idea who he is. He asked them, "What are you discussing so intently as you walk along?" They stopped short, sadness written across their faces. So there's the sadness. These were believers or followers of his. Then one of them, Cleopas, replied, "You must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about all the things that have happened there the last days." So again, they don't know who he is. So Jesus, playing along, says, "What things?" "The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth," they said. "He was a prophet who did powerful miracles, and he was a mighty teacher in the eyes of God and all the people. But our leading priests and other religious leaders handed him over to be condemned to death, and they crucified him." So right there, this little piece. But our leading priests and other religious leaders handed him over to be condemned. So they knew the truth that the other religious leaders basically sold Jesus out and got rid of him. "We had hoped he was the Messiah who had come to rescue Israel. This all happened 3 days ago." Then some women from our group of his followers, as I was saying a minute ago, were at his tomb early this morning, and they came back with an amazing report. They said his body was missing, and they had seen angels who told them Jesus is alive. Some of our men ran out to see, and sure enough, his body was gone, just as the women had said. Then Jesus said to them, walking along the road, "You foolish people, you find it so hard to believe," and I don't think he said it out of exasperation. Maybe that's the way I kind of said it. I don't think he did that, but "You find it so hard to believe that all the prophets wrote in the scriptures. Wasn't it clearly predicted that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering his glory?" Then Jesus took them through the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining from all the scriptures the things concerning himself. By this time they were nearing Emmaus, in the end of their journey. Jesus acted as if he were going on, but they begged him, "Stay the night with us. It is getting late." So he went home with them. I mean, could you imagine? Obviously, they're taking Jesus after he's risen from the dead into their home to have dinner. I mean, and they don't even realize who it is. But obviously, this is a very knowledgeable person because he was teaching them the writings of Moses and the other prophets. So obviously, this conversation went very well, and there was a level of trust there that they could bring him home with them that night. And they were obviously good people too. They opened up their home and fed him. As they sat down to eat, Jesus, took the bread and blessed it. Then he broke it and gave it to them, sharing in the sacrament of communion. Suddenly their eyes were opened and they recognized him. And at that moment, he disappeared. At that moment, he disappeared. So they go through this whole scenario where they walk and they talk and the sadness and they don't recognize him. They take a bite of the bread, they open up their eyes and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Jesus." Poof, he's gone. That's so fascinating. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure if it's just like, okay, he's moving on to the next person or where he's going from there, but I'm sure it's the history knows where he maybe went from there, but it's so interesting. Then they turned to each other and they said, "Didn't our hearts burn within us as he talked with us on the road and explained the scriptures to us?" And within the hour, they were on their way back to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 disciples and the others who had gathered with them, who said, "The Lord has really risen. He appeared to Peter." So now the word's getting around. Then the two from Emmaus told their story of how Jesus had appeared to them as they were walking along the road, and how they had recognized him as he was breaking the bread. So, I mean, think about it. If this was you, or if this was me, or this was any of us, and Jesus had just been crucified, and everybody had saw his dead body taken from the cross and placed in the tomb, and the stone rolled in front of the tomb. That you would think in those times, and even today, that was it. So people were just sad and could not have imagined that it would be possible that this man could rise from the dead, unless, of course, he was the Messiah. And so as they're walking along, this person comes to them, and they have no idea who he is, but yet they established a relationship, and inviting him even in for dinner, like I said, or something to eat and to stay the night, and then he reveals himself to them and he disappears. So, and then they go back to Jerusalem, and then Peter says, "Yeah, he appeared to Peter too." So maybe did he go from there to Peter, or Peter to them? I mean, it just is so, the places he picked to reappear were done very purposely to, I'm sure, have the greatest impact, and to give all of us hope for the future, that he died for us, but he has risen again. And that's obviously the whole point of Easter, which we just celebrated last weekend. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Like I said, I'll jump on Facebook here in a few minutes. I will just one last kind of announcement, housekeeping thing, if you will. We are still taking money for the Easter offering. So far, we've gotten a little over $20,000 for the Durango Food Bank and the Adaptive Golf Program. So we want to just thank everybody who's contributed to that. There's still time. You can write a check or go online and give you a credit card or debit card, or even just a draw. We could draw from your checking account or whatever you want. But and all that money does go to those organizations. So thanks to everybody who's participated in that. And it certainly has exceeded our expectations. Even though we know you're a very giving congregation, it's still just a funny time with limited attendance and all of those things. So thanks for those of you who participate in that. So I'm signing off. Jake Forsyth will be here next week. Celia will be here on Monday morning, so everybody get ready for that. And then she also does a chapel devo. So we love Celia, and she does such a great job, and I know she brightens everybody's morning on Monday morning. So thank you.